military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Fans responded with the frustration of a community that's felt unheard for too long. Within hours, GCS Sheldon's social media was flooded with criticism, and the internet was ablaze with calls for accountability, including suspensions, fines, and reviews. Reactions ranged from anger to disappointment, but there was one shared sentiment. Action was needed. Many weren't framing Sheldon as a tough competitor. They were questioning the intent behind her actions, especially when they involved one of the league's brightest stars.
Unequivocally, I think President Trump made the right decision for America to attack Iran's nuclear weapons program. And I think we're on the verge of potentially seeing regime change in Iran as part of that. I think this is a huge change in the Middle East. It was a decisive action. It was the right thing to do. I thought somebody should do it for a long time, but better late than never.
Biggest question in Washington right now is what the level of U.S. involvement will be from here, as you guys have been talking about. And we have seen some mixed signals on that today. Just in the last 2 hours, the president posting on social media suggesting that the U.S. could be considering pushing for a full regime change in Iran. He wrote that while it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, if the current regime is unable to make Iran great again, then why wouldn't there be a regime change? And that would likely mean greater U.S. involvement from where we are now, instead of a return quite quickly to the negotiating table. And that directly contradicts everything that we've heard so far today from senior Trump officials. So Vice President J.D. Vance this morning saying the U.S. view had been, quote, very clear that we don't want a regime change. Pete Hegseth saying that it was not what the mission was about. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio called it, quote, certainly not the goal of what they've been working on. So this was last night, all three of those men standing behind the president as he made that announcement, and the president now going further than all three of them. At the same time, the administration now is bracing for potential retaliation. NBC News is reporting tonight that Iran sent the president a message at last week's G7 threatening to attack the U.S. at home here in the U.S. via sleeper cells if the administration went ahead with the strikes as they've now done. The Department of Homeland Security is also warning earlier today that the conflict is causing what they called an ongoing threat environment in the U.S., and they say cyber attacks in particular could be likely. So a lot of things to watch as we head into this week. I'll note, guys, we haven't seen the president on camera at any point today.
Even mainstream media couldn't stay silent. Late-night hosts and sports analysts weighed in, with Jimmy Fallon taking a rare, serious moment to deliver a clear message on national TV. Protect Caitlin Clark at all costs. Enough is enough. Meanwhile, Barstool Sports' Dave Portnoy didn't hold back, strongly criticizing the Connecticut players and questioning whether their actions belong on a professional court. When commentary gets that heated from across the spectrum, it's a clear sign the public sees something seriously wrong, and they did. Next voice. To understand why this moment struck such a nerve, you have to understand what Caitlin Clark represents to the WNBA. She's not just a rising star. She's the driving force behind the league's current surge in visibility and revenue. According to Dr. Ryan Brewer, a finance expert at Indiana University Columbus, Clark was responsible for a staggering 26.5% of all WNBA economic activity during her rookie season. That's more than a quarter of the league's total, generated by a player earning just $76,535. Even more jaw-dropping, Brewer projects that Clark could generate nearly $1 billion in economic value for the WNBA in 2025 alone. That's not hype, that's data. With numbers like that, Clark may be the most impactful player in the history of women's basketball. So the fact that she's being left vulnerable to repeated physical play without consistent protection isn't just concerning, it raises serious questions about priorities, player safety, and long-term league strategy. Next voice. When a player has that much influence on league visibility, ticket sales, TV ratings, and sponsor engagement, allowing her to endure repeated physical play without serious consequences isn't just concerning, it's a major oversight. In most professional leagues, an incident like this would result in immediate ejections, fines, suspensions, and official statements by the next morning. Yet here we are watching Caitlin Clark, the face of the WNBA, absorb hard fouls while referees appear indifferent and league responses feel muted. In the case of JCS Sheldon, fans were stunned when the league issued only a flagrant 1 foul, a penalty many saw as too lenient given the nature of the incident. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham, one of the few players who visibly stood up for Clark, received a flagrant 2 and an additional fine. To fans, the message feels backwards. Take a hard shot at a star player and receive minimal discipline. Stand up in her defense and get punished even more. It's raised serious concerns about consistency, player safety, and the message being sent by the league. Donald Trump recently declared what many are calling his mission accomplished moment. I'm Bobby Jones, reporting for Midas Touch, Valor Media Networks, and Ken Harbaugh. Earlier this week, Trump announced what he described as a highly successful U.S. military strike on Iranian territory. According to him, the operation was aimed at preventing Iran from advancing its nuclear program. He praised the mission's execution outcome, calling it a major success. However, as more information becomes available and the damage assessment continues, there appears to be a shift in how the objective is being portrayed. What was originally framed as a decisive move to halt nuclear development now raises questions about the long-term goals and broader implications of the strike. Next voice. The Middle East has always been a complex arena for U.S. foreign policy. I know this firsthand. I've served in the region many times and understand the ballistic missile threats posed by Iran and other regional powers. When Donald Trump claimed that a recent U.S. strike was meant to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons, many people, even those wary of new conflicts in the Middle East, felt the objective sounded clear: prevent nuclear escalation. But now the narrative appears to be shifting. What began as a targeted strike to halt nuclear advancement is now being reframed as a potential push for regime change. Even Israeli officials have noticeably adjusted their rhetoric. Why? Because while the military action may have been executed cleanly, it likely did not neutralize all nuclear sites. Facilities remain intact. Capabilities may still be online. Rather than admit the original objective may not have been fully achieved, President Trump seems to be redefining success. His recent social media comments suggest he's now open to, or even advocating for, regime change in Iran. But here's the problem. If that's the direction this takes, we must ask what happens the day after. What comes next? O fills the power vacuum? O ensures Iran doesn't spiral into chaos or worse, a haven for extremists? Woe rebuilds the country. The U.S. has a long and difficult history with such missions. Iraq and Afghanistan are prime examples, where we underestimated the long-term requirements of nation building. Despite those costly lessons, 2025 appears to echo the same patterns. Ironically, Trump was once a vocal critic of prolonged U.S. involvement in the Middle East. Yet now, under his leadership, we're witnessing similar decisions, perhaps with even less clarity on the objectives or outcomes. Compounding the challenge is a significant reduction in diplomatic expertise. The National Security Council is smaller. Decision-making appears centralized within a tight inner circle, largely military figures, the Secretary of State, and intelligence heads. Meanwhile, key voices from the Defense Department and diplomatic community reportedly have little influence. Neither Israel nor the United States has publicly articulated a clear endgame. No metrics, no measurable goals, and that should concern us all. These are the same unresolved questions that dragged America into long, costly wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. The Trump administration has chosen to spotlight the precision and professionalism of the military operation, and yes, that deserves recognition. But it also appears to be a deliberate strategy to avoid answering the real questions. What's next? What does success look like? What's the long-term plan for regional stability? In many ways, this moment mirrors President George W. Bush's mission accomplished declaration in Iraq, celebrating a tactical victory while ignoring the strategic uncertainty that followed. And now, 2 decades later, we may be watching history repeat itself.